A South Australian indie developer published this one to Steam back in November of 2025. Their name is Stomy. This is a game that comes with a tongue twister of a name. Ctesiphon? 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 That is, until you play it and spot a smartly placed billboard advertising itself. Ctesiphon. This one was hand-built in a custom engine and self-describes as a retro wave / mecha-inspired sci-fi FPS with fast-paced combat with old-school style level design. I do believe Ctesiphon itself was a bit of a training run for Stomy on the path to developing a much more ambitious, cyberpunk-themed immersive simulation game called Fiber Optic Pizza. Now, this one is maybe not entirely my usual type of game to review, that being a classic boomer shooter rather than a standard mech game. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but the game looked interesting enough for me to give it a go regardless. Just to get any expectations out of the way, you don't actually get to pilot any mechs here. You do fight against a few though. I'd say the mech-inspired line makes the most sense, kind of like how there's an overlap between something like Ghost in the Shell and more definitive Mecha. I don't think anybody would point directly at Ghost in the Shell and call it a mech show, but on the other hand, if it gets brought up in discussions, I don't think anyone else bats an eye. And I wondered if Ctesiphon sat in the same place, working as one of those genre orbiters, just dipping a toe into the pool, but never walking to the diving board for a full-on cannonball splash. So I took it upon myself to play it and find out. And who am I, you might ask? Hi, I'm Empty. I'm a bit of a newbie when it comes to the world of giant robots, but I more recently discovered that I really love them. Because of that, I've set myself on this mission here to devour all the mecha video game content that I can and debrief all of my thoughts, feelings, and opinions onto this YouTube channel. If you'd like to keep up with me, we'd love to see you hit the thumbs up or hit the subscribe button, or if you just want to let us know what your favorite episode of Mazinger Z was, you can drop it in the comments below. Thanks. After taking some time to soak in and relax with probably the most chilled out title screen I've ever been presented with, I started up a new game, unsure of the adventure I was about to embark on. With little consideration, I picked my standard difficulty setting, Normal. The chill tones of the menu are violently ripped away as an ear-crashing phone rings. It's VP Smith from the Ctesiphon Corporation, hoping to break the ice with our player character, the galactic bounty hunter Ethelyn Dax. She doesn't take kindly to this call. This means somebody wants us to work. This means the beachside getaway is over, and we haven't even unpacked yet. The tutorial here takes up a whole 5 seconds as we make our way back to our hut, though someone is waiting for us, and we handle them gruffly. The vacation really is over, as a gun ends up back in our hands once again. At this point I also noticed certain environmental entities were destructible, like the cactus. I had hoped that this was foreshadowing that a lot more things would explode when I hit them, but ultimately this turned out to be less than I dreamed by the end of the game. You might have also noticed the lack of voice acting so far. There's only text boxes lit up at the bottom of the screen. Except when we round the corner, we do get a voice, a resounding as Dax becomes within line of sight of another merc in full gear. I like to imagine these guys are classic 80s thugs with white powder dusting their nostrils. There's a bit of that vibe through the whole game to me, a bit of the whole over-the-top 80s action flick stuff. Maybe our hero, Ethelyn Dax, was a bodybuilder turned movie star too. This island resort level continues, the lounging music falls into the background draped in the sounds of gasps and gunshots. We crawl through huts shooting down the bad guys, stealing their burgers, fries, and canned coffees for minor health ups. I like the tiger print bedding, very Elvis Presley. Here we also find a traditional Doom inspiration in the aspect of locked doors behind colored keycards, and while searching for that, we also discover our first secret area. Keeping with the theme of classic inspirations, the item we do find here in this hidden area is in fact a shotgun. Speaking of the guns, depending on your preference, the gunplay might feel underwhelming for you. This game has done away with location-based damage, which means no headshots. This makes it feel very, very old school, if you're used to modern standards. Similarly, this game pushes you to use every weapon at your disposal due to ammo scarcity, which personally was fine for me because I want to use all of the different weapons. However, that could end up being a bit iffy whenever you're pushed into a tight spot with some of the more tanky health pool enemies to fight. After moving through the first keycard door, we're greeted by the main villain, Commander Vega, whose extreme V-neck shirt must be symbolic of the first letter of her name. She's the leader of the Black Death mercenary company. Dax has a personal vendetta against Vega, which means the hunt is on. We also meet a couple new enemies before the level ends, a flying drone that drops grenades and what appears to be a reformatted office worker, except his hands have been replaced with saw blades and his head is some sort of computer machine. The level ends with a complete mission button, confetti, and a stat screen showing our score in terms of kills, secrets, and playtime. The second level takes place at night, letting us put the flashlight feature to good use. It starts on a beach, but leads through a more jungle terrain before we find a highway and follow the road towards civilization. First, though, we face our first mech. This is really the only mech design besides a boss later. Its design strikes me as very Battletech, very Mad Cat looking. The text blurb that pops up shows an image of the pilot inside him. That too I draw comparison to old Battletech pilot artwork, when there was a more barbarian fantasy involved with the pilots and they were nude with the exception of a cooling vest and Nero helmet. Anyways, the mech functions as a pretty good bullet sponge before exploding and we go on our merry way into the city. This environment might have been my favorite in the game. There's a lot of lit up signage to be looking at, most of which is referential to other media or some sort of the in-universe world building and jokes. Signs showing the correct way to pronounce the game, signs showing beautiful ladies or calls to the AUG. When we get into the hotel, there's a bunch of cool artwork hanging on the walls. My particular favorite one that I saw was what seemed to be a space colony from Gundam on the inside. The next section continues through the city landscape, but the sun is rising. It still feels like a bit of a vacation over the waterfront with this sunrise. This level introduces the first puzzle aspect to us, which reoccurs a couple more times throughout. We've got to find the right switches to drop bridges to continue forward. We also meet another robot enemy. This time it's an old computer monitor with a face on it. And I think that's all of them, besides the end boss. It is fun blasting all these different baddies. I think a little more variation would have been nice. The standard Merc grunts could have used maybe a couple different weapon loadouts or like an armored version. It would have also been nice to see an enemy with a power level in between the grunts and the big mech suits, maybe like a mid-game boss or something like that. It was cool when I realized the grunts will hold conversations with each other if I try to sneak up on them instead of just running in guns blazing. Like the two guys in the hotel explaining they don't know if they'd be able to shoot Dax if they even come across her because her rack is so big. From here we move into the city's industrial district. This portion becomes a maze of shipping crates and warehouse buildings. It also has a high amount of security and lots of mechs to fight against. The maze-like nature of this one frustrated me. I also gave the plasma gun a good test drive throughout this stage. It shoots big purple blobs. Second to the finale, the offshore comm station. This one is a big gray mass of bridges, satellites, tech rooms, and switches. This one is also a little frustrating. I won't spoil the puzzle, but a certain locked door takes some out of the box thinking to surpass. Before we finish this one though, we'll definitely have had time to pick up the jet gun. This is a water blaster. You suck up ocean water and fire a very powerful shot with it. Probably the most fun weapon in the game, and I wish it had more time to shine. This level in general really reminds me of the Cradle level from 007 GoldenEye on Nintendo 64. I feel like a lot of aspects in this game in general remind me of others, actually. The Doom-like keycards and lack of location-based damage, the comfortable and uncanny referential atmosphere reminds me of jazz punk, the drones and environmental weapons like Half-Life 2. Don't mistake me for saying this game is a clone of any of these or just copying them by any means. Ctesiphon really feels like its own unique experience despite its heavy influence toward classics. Final mission before the boss, the casino. This one is about what you'd expect from the name, an opulent offshore gambling base for Vega and crew. It's a big tower, and we're to make our way to the top. We also put the rocket launcher and the gyro blaster to good use as we walk up the stairs. The gyro blaster I can explain as being something like in between the rocket launcher and a minigun, I guess. The final fight takes place on the rooftop of the casino. You're on foot. Vega is in a big red mech. I'm not sure if it's just the color or maybe it's slenderness, but it kind of reminds me of Unit 02 from Evangelion. Vega has a substantial health pool and sends the flying drones at us too during this fight, and the edges of the entire map arena are lined with additional ammo and pickups for us to use and pick up. With a stream of, "What no, how did you manage to beat me?" and a congratulations from VP Smith, the credits roll and we've completed the mission and the game. All in all, I had a pretty good time with this one. While it isn't breaking new ground or paving the way for the future of FPS games, it does a good job retreading proven ground with a solid step and a fresh pair of shoes. It doesn't have anything like multiplayer to extend its short playtime, being about 3 hours, though I could see replaying this one for speedruns at higher difficulties or searching for every hidden secret location across all 8 different maps. It's worth picking up for fans of old-school shooters. Being something of a mech man myself, this one of course falls pretty short. I was hoping there would be at least a brief sequence where Dax manages to take control of one of the war machines and blast down a swarm of enemies that are on foot, but unfortunately that didn't happen. As enemies, there really is only the one mech to fight against on a regular basis, and then the final boss. I was hoping there would be at least a handful of different designs, or maybe they'd play like a strong role in the story aspect, but they were kinda just there. Regardless, I enjoyed Ctesiphon, but I don't think I'd call it a mech game either.